got some people on the icons there, so I guess we're up and running. I might as well get started. Good evening, everybody. Today is January 5th, 2023. Gee, I got it right. uh, Welcome as you come in. I'm going to push this down just a little bit more. You're going to notice that my right eye is in bad shape. So I might as well explain that. When I was doing my last video, or maybe it was even before that, I told you that I got a sinus infection. Well, now it's gone into my right eye. So, yeah, no, I didn't get punched in the eye. I'm not in the Luciferian League or any of that stuff. It's just conjunctivitis. Extremely contagious, so I'm being very careful. I don't want anybody else to get it. So I wash my hands a lot. I use the medicine, and hopefully it'll go away. We'll see. So anyway, sorry. I know it looks kind of nasty, but that's the way it goes. Hopefully I'll be up and running by weekend, but I'm not so sure. All right. Why did I decide to come on tonight? Well, as you know, I try to come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, whether people are interested or not, because I feel like that at times I just have to speak my mind about some things. And by the way, I'm going to have a really hard time seeing the chat because I have medicine in my both eyes. This one so it doesn't get it, and this one because it already does, so I'm treating both. So I can't see very clearly, all right? So you'll have to forgive me tonight. And I'm going to sound pretty nasal still. So, I do have a feeling of responsibility, even though like I've said before, my influence is very small. But we all have to speak up. We have a First Amendment. We have God who brought, according to the biblical scriptures, brought everything into existence by the word. And the word's important, so that's the reason why we have freedom of speech. And anybody that tries to suppress that freedom of speech is your enemy, okay? I don't care if you're saying things they don't like, all right? It's not hate speech. It's got to be free. It's got to be open. Because if you can't dissent against a tyrant, if you can't point out degeneracy and immorality and corruption and criminality, if you can't point it out, then they win. And that's why they try to suppress you, of course. That's why they censor you. They can't argue the point, so they just cut you out. Which is why the FBI was in all these different social organizations telling them what to censor. And of course, now we find out, there have been some other reports made now, that it wasn't just the FBI, and we already knew that. I mean, it was pretty obvious. That a lot of government agencies were in there telling people in the social different social platforms and things like that to censor things in one way or another. Certainly the CDC did it, the NIH, the DHS, the FBI, the DOJ, the DOD, and I'm sure it goes much deeper than that. Probably the Department of Treasury. I mean, they've all been on it because they don't want you to confront them about their illegality, their unconstitutionality, their corruption, etc. So, at any rate, we're in a pickle here because we don't have anybody that's standing up for us. In the description box below are two links. I've had some people ask me, both privately and here and on Twitter and some other places, why aren't you talking about the Brunson case in Utah? And why am I not talking about, even though I've mentioned both of these in passing, I haven't gone into any detail, why haven't I talked about the lawsuit that's been brought by the Missouri and Louisiana attorneys general against the Biden administration for their getting involved with social media to censor any speech, especially anything contrary to their official narrative. The whole idea of the First Amendment, again, as I've said, is so that you can challenge government so they can't do things in secrecy and just put you down and say that you can't talk about it. So in the description box are two articles that you can read. If you're not up on this, you can read it and see what's going on. Now, Why did I title this video what I have? Well, I don't have a lot of faith in lawsuits against the executive branch, against the Congress, against the judiciary. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in what, I mean, let me rephrase this. We have to use all lesser means. We have to constantly petition the government for redress of grievance with every tool that we have. However, no matter how I feel about the Brunson case, which is from Utah, and they're basically challenging, I think it's 318 different government officials, bureaucrats, elected officials for violations of their oath of office. It's more complicated than that, but that's kind of the whole deal scrubbed down. And it's going to the Supreme Court. And I think they're already looking at a docket date. I'm not really sure about that. But apparently it's going to end up in the Supreme Court, or at least make it there, and then the Supreme Court will decide whether to listen to it or not. I don't know, which is what I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So that's the first one. The second one is, again, like I said, the lawsuit being brought by the attorneys general of Louisiana and Missouri. And I appreciate what all these people are doing. I really honestly do. The problem is that we already know that there's a fourth branch of government, not a legitimate one, but one that's usurped power. And that basically the three branches, let me rephrase that. There are four branches of government in the Constitution. Okay, and I talked about this before. There's we the people, there's the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Okay. Well, so technically there's a fifth branch of government, a usurper, an interloper, an imposter, a tyrant that has taken over. And the Last Refuge on Twitter, and they have a website called the Conservative Treehouse. I think these people are there are a number of them, and they do a really good job. Unfortunately, they support Trump almost without second thought. But other than that, they do an excellent job on bringing things out and doing great investigative journalism. And it's put together in such a way that you're not being led all over a board everywhere. You know, have this thing over here connected to this thing way over there, connected to this up here, connected to, you know, driving you nuts on trying to figure out, you know, what's going on. Usually in a good narrative essay or article, they will outline the issues that are of a problem. So remember the Last Refuge. It's on Twitter, and their website, I believe, is the Conservative Treehouse. Still, good folks. I like them, other than their steadfast support of Trump, which I know they have reasons for that, but I'm sorry, I'm just not going to go there. At any rate, so this group outlined this. They call it the fourth branch of government. I call it the fifth, as I just explained. And they are untouchable. This fifth branch of government supposedly is controlled by the executive branch, and I'm talking about, of course, the DOJ, the Department of State, the DHS, the Department of the Treasury, and particularly the FBI and the intelligence agencies. Okay, all of that is supposed to fall under the executive branch. The executive branch isn't going to do anything. It doesn't have control of those places. We saw that under Trump. We've seen it in the JFK situation and everything since then. They are rogue. They are a law unto themselves, and there's no way to reach them, I don't think. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Brunson wins, and I hope the attorneys general of Louisiana and Missouri win. But I don't think it's going to get to where it needs to be, much less be even if the Supreme Court ruled in our favor. What's the enforcement arm that's going to change this? You tell me what it is. All right? There's really only one now, because the DOD is bought off. You can't trust them. It's only the individual states. And then what are we going to do? Try to stand up against the federal government? You see the problem? So what I'm saying here is that the reason why I haven't given a lot of information on the Brunson case, hi Liza Jean, on the Brunson case or on this AG, Louisiana and Missouri AG suing the Biden administration. And what that is, again, let me read this real quick. The suits are about the censorship under the Biden administration the Biden administration, I'm sure there are people in the White House that did this too, called or got in control of these different social platforms and said, we want you to censor these things, and the really bad ones are you censor this person and this person and this person and this person. That's what's happened. Okay, a legitimate complaint by those two AGs, and actually all the state AGs ought to be involved in this. It's a good thing, but again, how is it going to be resolved? It's not going to, even if they won. And frankly, I'm not sure with the type of threats that are made by this rogue fifth branch of government. I'm talking again about the intelligence community, the DHS, the FBI, the DOJ, even the DOD. They're a law unto themselves. Who's going to force them to do the right thing? Again, I'm not saying not to do this. I'm just saying that I don't see it working out for our benefit. I don't think the people in the Supreme Court have the guts, frankly. I mean, even if they veiled the truth by ruling against the Biden White House, that fifth branch of government is controlling Biden, not the other way around. It was the same under Trump. It's been the same for a long time. Obama was actually a member of the IC. Little different situation there. But you see, that's why I haven't gone into a lot of study on these things or given about a lot of information, is because I really don't see these being adjudicated in our favor in any way, shape, or form. Same with the Brunson case. Very brave for these people to do this. They've got targets on their back, but I think it's necessary to do it under the structure that we have in the Constitution, but the Constitution isn't there anymore. As everybody knows, there's another thing that's going on here, and nobody has the understanding, apparently, or the courage to address that, except the conservative treehouse, last refuge. It kind of goes along with this thing that's going on in the House of Representatives right now with this thing with McCarthy. McCarthy, I've seen a lot of conservatives say, no, let's just get McCarthy in there because he's a Republican, we don't want a Dem in there. The problem with that, in my estimation, is you're doing the same thing that Brunson and these AGs are doing. You're basically bowing down to the system. So I appreciate Laura Boebert, Jim Jordan, and about a half a dozen, 20 others of those guys and ladies standing up and saying, no, we're not going to assent to this. I don't know how this is going to turn out. We're not going to assent to this because it's giving credence to the same problem that we've had all along. That's a worthwhile fight, but there are downsides to it, and I'm not going to get into that. There are downsides to it, but frankly, I think we're up against the wall right now, and despite what John Cardillo says and all these other people that we should just get McCarthy in there, Trump saying that and all that, you got to take a stand somewhere, even in the danger of some serious things happening, because nothing's going to change if we don't. Yeah, I know Jordan voted for McCarthy originally, I know, but then people have voted for Jordan to be in there. The whole thing is a mess. As I said the other night, I had it up on the board, the GOP, the GOP establishment, GOP in caps and E meaning establishment. It's not for us. It's just been, it's a false left-right paradigm, and it's a uniparty, and they control us by thinking that we've got people in there standing up for us. Well, there are some. You got Matt Gaetz, you got. And I know these people have individual problems, okay? Don't start throwing stuff up there, okay? I already know it. But by and large, You have people like Matt Gaetz, Laura Boebert. I don't know what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she was pushing for McCarthy. Probably because she wants to be on Trump's good graces. But at any rate, there are a few there that are trying to do the right thing, even though it's going to cause some problems in getting us to a point where a resolution will actually occur. Because the problem isn't in the legislative branch. MTG's name is Brugburn. Yeah, I know. She's been an enigma to me. Most of these legislators are and government people. They all have some ulterior motive, and I know that. One face in the public, another in the background. Look at what's her name? It doesn't matter. So what I'm saying here is the only way that anything's going to change is not by going through the system. It's just not going to work, especially with this fifth branch of government that I've talked about that actually controls everything else, that spies on our representatives, our lawmakers, even our president, even our Supreme Court justices. That I see, as I've often said, the motto of my channel is that the intelligence community is our most dangerous domestic enemy. And that includes the corporatocracy and the banksters and all of that, because that's all what that is. And our DOD won't protect us. The DOD should have sent the Delta Force after Harari and Klaus Schwab already, and they didn't. And look at Fauci. With all the information that's coming out, so many in the government are still pushing the treatment. And what they ought to be doing is hauling Fauci's ass in and charging it. But again, you see, the IC wants this. The FBI was out there suppressing that information, as well as the CDC. All these people were suppressing the information, coming after you and me for putting this stuff out. So what's the purpose of the FBI? They are in it for themselves. There are no good agents in the FBI if they're not speaking out. I don't give a shit what they say about having to support their families. They're talking about murdering now, genocide. All right? They're talking about tyranny. It's inexcusable. And I called this out for a long time. So, again, I haven't talked about these two cases, Brunson or the AG suits, mainly because I don't really have a lot of faith that they're going to go anywhere. They're righteous in their redress of grievance to the government. I'm not saying that's not the case, but where is the enforcement going to come from? The balkanization of the United States is the only answer. And I'm not saying I want that, but that's kind of the only thing that we're going to be able to work with. And that's what the New World Order wants anyway. They want to break up Russia. They want to break up the United States. Everything that's happening in the world is actually, as I've so often said, is actually targeting you, the American people in particular. Europeans too to some extent, but really the American people. Well, I don't know what the plan is. See, that's just the problem. This is bigger than any of us. And if no state government, we've got Louisiana and Missouri stepping in. Where's Utah? Where's Wyoming? Why aren't they having a coalition of states to stand against the federal government and against particularly that fifth branch of government, that usurping, tyrannical, unlawful, unconstitutional branch of government that's exercising power independent of the executive? Or the executive just saying, yeah, just go do it. Either way, these people don't understand anything but force. If you listen to Alexander Mercouris and Alex Christoforou and Brian Berletic, all these people that I've given you before, they're redacted with Natalie and Clayton Morris, The Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal, etc., etc. I've told you about all of these things before, right? We know what's going on. But unless we have competent governmental authority that it will be willing to stand up and make a coalition of the willing, so to speak, we as people don't have any hope. And so what I've said for a long time is that you can look at it as God taking action, or you can look on it as cause and effect, that we become so decadent and so evil, all right, that we're a fallen empire. And again, whether we have a world war and kill everybody, or whether we have a real conflict here in the United States, or whether we just submit and get broken up, you see the evil ones win. It's a win-win situation for them in any of those scenarios, unless competent states stand up. And like I said, with the breakdown of Western civilization, you can look at that as just a causation of their decadence, or it could be God coming in, and I do believe that. And this right here is going to do it, and it's not going to be pretty, as I've said before. I look at them, not really. I mean, Russia's got a lot of good points, okay? They're a true Christian nation for one thing, and a lot of other good things about them. I'm not saying there aren't, oligarchs and thugs and stuff like that. Hell, we've got those and more than an abundance. I mean, these guys here point the fingers at them. Well, look what these guys have done over the world. I mean, it's terrible. But as I've said many, many times, Russia is very much the modern day Assyria that's going to punish the nations. In history and in the Bible, Assyria destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel and took it into captivity. And I think that's what they're headed for. And their coalition. I don't like China, but these people are so evil that I don't see any other way out of it. And that's going to hurt all of us too. That's not going to be a good resolution for us, but that's where we're headed. So that's why I haven't talked much in detail about the Brunson case or about the AGs suing the government. I'll just mention a couple of other things along that. We know about the FBI hiding information about the Biden laptop. We already knew that. Funny that they haven't been held to account on that, right? I mean, it's going to probably kind of be there in this Louisiana, Missouri case, but I don't know. And then, of course, the Twitter revelations on the interference by the FBI and a lot of other government agencies that got into the censorship business and the control of your First Amendment. It's very bad. And why do they do that? Because they think they have a right to. They're not out here to protect your God-given, constitutionally protected rights. They're out here for their agenda, and they're all criminals. Okay? They're all criminals. They're all tyrants. They're all evil. So, I'm not saying anything new tonight that I haven't said before, but I wanted to clarify because people were upset that I wasn't giving the information on the Brunson and AG cases that they thought I should. Well, we'll see what happens. I've already what I've told you about what those cases are about is sufficient for what we have to do here. You can go read some more of the details, or even more if you want to look them up. But I don't have a whole lot of expectation that we are going to get relief. I think that the fifth branch of government, and it's illegitimate. It's a usurper. It's unconstitutional. It's outside of our lawful system, even with all the national security laws and all that stuff they put into place. I don't see them feeling it necessary to change, and what force is going to make them do it. All right. So that's really all I had tonight. I'm not up to, as you can tell, doing too much more. I'm still treating, my condition here. I haven't been sick like this in a long time. No, it's, as I said the other night, it's not the CVD. All right, it's not that. I got exposed to some other stuff, Yeah, Jade Helm. Yes, Liza Jean. I talked about that quite a bit. Yeah, AI, military, and the intelligence community, law enforcement complex is all involved in that. When a Jade Helm was going on, I got followed, I got tracked, and I get. It was really funny. I got people aren't going to follow you. They can do it from satellites and all that. And these people that say so, I don't understand what intimidation is used for. And the AI information that they have or the satellite information or whatever, they still want to verify their information by looking at it on the ground at their targets. Yes, it's very true. You're you're my cousin. What? Liza Jean Williams? You're my cousin? What? You'll have to explain that. I mean, I think that'd be great if you are. Okay. Um, I appreciate all the good wishes about getting better in the Lord. Oh, okay. I was going to say, wow, did you do some genealogy and find that out? I'll be right back on camera. Hold on a second. All right. Hopefully, I can come back on camera and I've got won't have something hanging out of my nose. That's really very. As a police officer, uh, you're working late at night. Well, not even necessarily late at night, but you're alone in your car, for hours and all that, and you kind of lose your manners when you're by yourself. And I was sitting at a stoplight one night, and sometimes you start digging at your nose. And I looked over, and there was a lady sitting there looking at me, going, "Oh," while I'm digging at my nose. What we do, it's kind of funny, different things that happen. Uh, all right, like I said, I can't really see the chat. I'm trying to see it. Yeah, I've been using all kinds of stuff. Janet, we the people, whiskey, lemon, and honey. I've done that. Zinc, I've done that. NAC. NAC is more for the respiratory system here in the lung area. That's not going to help me. Everything's right here. Okay. Um, and I'll give you a little background story about why this is so serious for me. It put me in the hospital in 2009, in December of 2009. Uh, it goes back to, I won't give you the exact details, but I got exposed to chlorine. Um, uh, kind of like that World War One stuff. All right. And it burned me up. It's one reason why I wear a hairpiece, because I got burned on my head. I got burned on my face maybe back about 2 or 3 years ago. And even before that, you may have seen some sores, some scabs on me when I come on. I finally lose my vanity and say, I got to say something, so I come on. Anyway, they burn them off. Got it on my shoulder, on my arm, here, here. Anyway, well, I inhaled some of that through my mouth and my nose, and it burned my right lung. So I have a problem there. But the real problem was in the nasal area. When it got in there, it burned a hole. There's a very fine membrane. There's a very fine membrane between the nasal area and the brain. It's not for brains, right? And so I had, having gone through that, I actually damaged that membrane. It burned a little bit. So I got it and that was several years prior to me going to the hospital. Um, quite a long time actually. But I got just the right kind of a virus of some sort, which developed into a bacterial infection, and it actually went into my brain, and I had encephalitis. And so as a result of that, I was in the hospital for a number of days, and went through a lot of really nasty antibiotics and stuff, which really did me some damage. Sorry I didn't turn those off. Another mistake. Um, but so now when I get this, man, So now when I get this, I've really got to jump on it and take care of it. And as you can see, it kind of moved over into my eye this time. You don't need to know all that. Okay, I'll let you go. I was going to talk about some other things, but maybe not tonight. And primarily, well, I'll just save it for later. Okay. Thanks for coming. I just wanted to make this real quick so that you know that I'm still watching things. Ukraine's a mess. We already know that. Uh, Russia. Some people are saying now that maybe Russia won't do their offensive until the spring, maybe even the summer. Maybe, but I think there's some problems with waiting that long as far as the troops are concerned. You can't leave troops in the field like that for that long. I mean, yeah, you can do training and all that, but as Scott Ritter said, when they get there, that they're ready to go, and waiting too long is not a good thing. So, and I know the Russian command knows that. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with all this. It's all bad. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not liking what's going on. But by the same token, we know that Ukraine has been a money laundering organization and a lot of other bad stuff for the American establishment and some of the Eastern or Western European people for a long time. A lot of other bad things there. So, in my estimation, uh, I don't think the Russians can back down at this point, right? But it's going to be bad for us too before this is over. Again, don't let your sons and especially your daughters get in the military. Don't talk them out of it. Tell them why it's not a good thing. Tell them how evil this thing is. You're not protecting freedom or liberty. You're building an empire or trying to keep an empire from falling apart. And if you have people in the military, try to help them get out. Okay, as easy as you can. All right. Okay, I better go. Who knows what's going on here, but I'm getting attacked. Not attacked. I'm getting notified of something. I don't know what it is. Some people are friends of mine might be watching and they'll think that I can see their texts or whatever when I'm doing this, and I can't. They expect me to respond, and I can't. But I know it's it kind of distracts you all, so I apologize. All right, you all take care. I'm out of here. Eyes on the horizon, ears to the ground. Keep your situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, stay out of the way as much as you can. That's not to say, again, that you can't speak up. You should. You should call up Laura Boebert and all these people and say, um, how are you going to do this? We appreciate you doing this. We appreciate you AGs doing this. We appreciate Brunson doing this. But and it might be the first step, but I don't think that it's going to get resolved in any of those situations. Was it Jim Jordan today that nominated Donald Trump to be the Speaker of the House? And they can do that. The Speaker doesn't have to be in the House of Representatives, but is that going to solve anything? The father of the OWS who will not recant. No, and I'm not going to talk about the NFL and all that. You guys can keep track of that. Thanks for saying get better. I appreciate it all. Oh, it was Matt Gaetz that did that? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's right. It was. Matt Gaetz did it, not Jim Jordan. I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me on that. G-Man Neode. Is that what that is? Yeah, like I said, I'm not quite up to par here tonight. All right. All right. Trump would be entertaining. Well, he technically, let's say he did get there, that'd be his way to the presidency, wouldn't it? If the House was able to impeach Biden and Harris, he'd have his ticket to the White House, wouldn't he? Maybe that's the plan. Y'all take care out here.